It's also not the computer that I usually use for these things. So that was a bit of a fun. And then it's like, I'm going to be like this funny little thing on the background. I think it's going to be hilarious.
But we'll be able to see the bottom of the bells when you fixate. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just wondering. I think I can get it higher. I'm just building a tower.
Very good. I'm gonna leave and get a little bit more tea.
Do it. I just finished my tea.
I'll be back in a second.
How are you doing? Yeah, you're feeling all good?
Yeah, I practiced sharing the screen. It'll work. Yeah.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah.
I forgot to ask if you wanted to do a land acknowledgement.
We could if you want. Yeah. I'm not sure what you could do it for where you are.
Yeah, I'll do it for me. Like basically it's just unceded Algonquin territory, but I don't know where you are. Oh, you're in Montreal. Okay, so that's cool. And then and then I usually kind of offer for people to put their own place in the chat if they want.
Okay. So I was thinking we'll just wait till another 6 minutes, and then at 8 o'clock I'll admit everyone from the waiting room. And
yeah, that makes sense to me. Cool. And then I think we're good to go. And I think this works. This is the best we're gonna get.
Hi, Ian.
Hey, how are you? Did you figure out what happened with Felicity's video?
She had to reboot her modem.
Yeah, but it's gonna work now.
Lucky you.
Oh, it's a daily existence for me.
So I'm recording on this computer. Are you recording it as well, Ian?
I could if you like, sure.
Sure.
How much time we have?
Are you recording this now with me doing this?
Yeah. But, you know, you
Great.
Yeah.
There, you're gonna get bells.
Okay. Very good.
I mean, I'm not gonna do it in this.
This is the 3-minute quick change before showtime. Is this what? Yeah.
Oh.
Whoa. How heavy is that thing?
You could do it facing the camera too.
Yeah, I'm not used to doing that. That way.
Oh, yeah. Nice fixation.
You usually see more of the technique if you do it from the side, but I can do it either way.
Well, we got maybe a bit of both. Yeah. So Ian, I guess at 8 o'clock we'll admit people.
Well, there goes your voice.
Who, mine?
And you're back.
I mean, I always sort of expect there's going to be a little glitch
Okay.
How
in the
heavy is that
sound.
thing how heavy is that thing you were lifting there?
That's 12 kilograms.
Wow.
So
um,
20 pounds? Is that
25.
25.
yeah, 25.
Oh,
So
right.
it's not all. It's not. Yeah. So I usually. So I'm just doing like one arm now, but I used to do two. So 2 times 12, and the idea is to keep doing that for as many times as possible for 10 minutes. So it's more about volume than like. I mean, you're trying to get as heavy as possible, but it's also as heavy as possible for as long as possible.
Yeah, my son uses one. He uses it for jujitsu and stuff.
Yeah. There's I don't do the jujitsu, but there's definitely a jujitsu connection. Where does he train?
Here, 1
Do you
minute
know?
1 minute. He trains down in on Notre Dame Street. There's a gym down there.
Oh
in
yeah.
Montreal.
Yeah, I know that gym. Yeah. I used to live near that gym.
And there's a store that sells kettlebells and stuff just down the street there too.
It's true. I bet they have none left.
Maybe just in case you could ask people to mute their mics, Fortner.
Oh, yeah? Can't we do that automatically?
I was trying to, but I don't know whether it worked.
Oh, okay.
It might be also, I mean, isn't there a difference between like this version of working in Zoom and the presentation Zoom?
Yeah, there is, but
Okay. Well, shall we start?
sure, go ahead.
I'll admit Christopher, Karen, and Genevieve. So hello, everyone, and welcome to this event of the Vancouver Art Book Month. It's a talk with between myself, Fortner Anderson, I'm here in Montreal, and Felicity Taylor in Ottawa. I'd like to start off by thanking Ian Ferrier of Spoken Net, who provided us the Zoom connection for tonight's event. And I'd like to introduce Felicity Taylor, who was kind enough to participate in tonight's talk. She's the Research Data Management Librarian at the University of Ottawa, visual artist, curator, has published in anthologies such as the International Journal of Digital Libraries, the Journal of Canadian Art History, Canadian Literature, Mémoire du Livre, Studies in Book Culture. She's held a postdoctoral fellowship in the Department of History of Art at the University of Toronto, and she's presently one of the founders and applicants for the Spoken Word Partnership in Montreal. Thank you, Felicity, for joining us here tonight for our hour-long presentation of the work of Fortner Anderson.
Thank you, Fortner, for introducing me in your event. That's about you.
Yes.
So Fortner is a poet whose words become endurance performance. That's how I think about him. And he also is an artist and creates material objects that have a relationship to his poetry and to his performances, as we will see tonight. I think we need everybody's mics on mute, if that's possible to do.
Yeah, I'm doing that now.
Awesome. That being said, okay, so we talked about different ways that this could work tonight, and I think if you have questions, stick them in the chat. And we're a relatively small group, so I'll field questions like throughout. And if it makes more sense to just let you like speak it out loud instead of having me repeat the question, that will unmute you, so don't be shy. So back to Fortner. He's originally from the Midwest and the Southwest of the United States. But he's lived in Montreal since 1976. And I met him, I think my most closest recollection, I've met him around a lot in the Montreal scene, but my fondest memory is when he reached out to me and asked me to kind of curate a selection of videos from the Videograph collection while he was the director there. So Fortner has produced a number of audio recordings and books and performances, which we'll sort of look at excerpts of tonight. And also in 2007, he was awarded La Voix Électrique Prize for Career Achievement in Poetry Performance. So I thought that a good way to begin this would be to ask Fortner to talk a little bit about what collaborations mean to him and why he tends to work like in relationships to other people when he does his work or when he does events such as tonight, and why it's important to him. And as kind of like background to that question, thinking about how in another life he was a union leader, and it sort of makes me wonder whether any of that experience comes to bear on working with others in creative endeavors. When the creative fields that we work in, or the artistic fields, or the scenes, whatever you want to call them, are so wildly unregulated.
Well, you know, I have a number of long-term collaborations. I'm thinking of Fabrizio Ghilardino, a graphic designer who I've worked with on a number of different projects, starting with a CD that was produced to 6 silk purses, and ongoing to the layout of my current book project, Considerations. I also have a long-term collaboration with several musicians, including Alexander McSween, who I worked with on a number of different projects. And one of the things about collaboration for me is that it's quite crucial that my collaborators have a free hand in the creation of their work. I kind of consider that I can bring an overarching idea or a concept or a process into a work, but when I ask people to come and participate in it, we're creating something together. It might, I'm thinking like Six Silk Purses was perhaps one of the first evidence of that. It was a CD. I recorded a number of my poems and then gave them to 6 different electroacoustic composers: Chantal Dumas, Christophe Megon, Michel F. Côté, Alexandra McSween, and they took those recordings and then created new musical works out of them. And in many cases, I gave them a free hand in doing so, and so much so that in several of the pieces, the works came back as totally unrecognizable as poetry or my work, or that I'm quite satisfied with. It's something that allows me to step away from a work, to see it in a new light, and sometimes, of course, I'm surprised by what my collaborators have created. And sometimes it's off-putting, but it's always engaging, and that's always been terribly important for me. That the work is engaging and remains engaging over time. That I can come back to a work and experience it in a new way, because in a way that it's not fully mine at all. And also one of the things about collaboration is that it allows me a distance and the possibility of seeing my own work in a different light. And often I see it as overly sentimental or banal or simple-minded. And so my collaborators have very often allowed the work to be much stronger than the component that I was able to bring to it. About my running a union, which I did for many years. I started off as for my job. I was a carpenter and working in the movie business, and I became active in union politics, and eventually was elected to a union council, and then eventually through a series of crises ran the union, the STVQ, the Cinema Technicians Union here in Montreal, and brought that through a strike and a lockout. And so I eventually spent 20 years running unions in the arts sector, and I would never go back. It was an extraordinarily stressful work. It was an extraordinarily difficult work at times, but it was also rewarding in a number of different ways. Seeing the value of social action, seeing the clear evidence of how some people will take advantage of others if given the chance, and how what can be done to prevent that, and why it should be prevented. And of course, it was a highly political position, running a union too, which brought forward all kinds of different considerations as to how to retain the confidence of the members of the union. All that created a very wide life experience, which I'm quite thankful for. I feel quite privileged for having been able to go through that and to learn from it. The art world, of course, as you know, is not unregulated. It's highly regulated, especially when it comes to funding. The art world, of course, is also needs the support of the different government interveners to protect it, to provide it funds, and to allow, especially Canadian culture, a space to live and grow. And so, and also, the Canadian culture and all its extraordinary diversity, and with its different actors, all of them who, are looking to grow within that rather limited space. So that also creates tensions. But so I can't really say that my work as a union leader was in any real way affected my artwork, other than union work is often very very dull, very repetitive and boring, and that seems to be the kind of the kind of work that I've been producing over the last few years. But apart from that, it was more that and more life skills, I guess, the running a union, that so yeah.
Thanks, Fortner.
You have a follow-up question?
Yeah, I think that's a great. Well, we're going to talk about considerations, your piece considerations in a little bit, and I, before we introduce the piece, or well, maybe you can introduce the piece by also telling us a little bit about what the relationship of the sound of your voice, because we're going to watch a clip, right, I think, and so maybe you can tell us a little bit about the relationship between the sound of your voice when you speak the poetry, the sound of musicians, and the music's alongside the sound of that voice, and maybe also what our role is as listeners.
Well, I have a radio show on CKUT in Montreal every Thursday, which I've now had for some 30 years. And on that show, I play poets reading their own work. And it's that notion that of presenting the poet's voice, which has been so important to me and kind of central to my practice over all these years. For whatever reasons, I'm utterly, entranced by the capacity of the poet to give voice to their work, and I'm always surprised and thrilled by the capacity of poets to infuse their work with an emotional power, and to provide such great nuances that one of course lacks in reading the poem off the page. It's so from my personal practice, the voice and my voice has been central as well from the time of the Punketariat in the early mid 1970s. It was a group formed with several Montrealers, including Clifford Duffy, poet, Michael Fredericks, now passed away many years, and it was a group that was informed both by Marxist politics and the punk movement, and we started off by presenting our work, performing our work on stage as opening acts to punk bands, and of course no one wanted to see or hear our poems before the main act, and so immediately there was this great conflict, violent conflict between the people in the audience who wanted us off stage as quickly as possible, and we poets who were going to make sure that they heard our verses as we screamed them out at them. And so that kind of it started from there, and it's continued that where the voice of the poet is central, not only for my enjoyment of the medium, but also within my practice. As for my, the listener,
All right.
yeah. As for listeners,
Oh, well, I was just wondering. I
Yeah.
was thinking like that's a really great place to play the piece, and then let's see if we want to scream you off the stage.
Okay, good. Okay, so I'll share the screen of Alexander and McSween reading considerations, and I'll take a second as I go through the motions here on sharing the screen. Here we go. And we'll hear a couple of minutes of this, and then I'll explain what it's about.
Once I knew all the state capitals and the names of 36 presidents. Once I discovered a black widow spider under a rock in the driveway in front of my great-grandmother's house, 1518 Walnut Hills, Clarksville, Tennessee. Once I enjoyed the theme song to a cartoon about a jovial, larcenous bear with his home in Jellystone Park. Once I hit the little girl next door. Her nose bloody, and me quiet and unseen under the porch till long past supper. Once I saw, on a trip to the Lake of the Woods on my first trip to Canada with my mother, my brother, and my stepfather, an impossibly large muskie in the murky water beneath our canoe. Once I read Tom's. Once I wanted a bullet and a gun, fire and flood, catastrophe and apocalypse, Armageddon and a fresh, clean start. Once I burned a $1 bill as a test of my adherence to the material world. Once I called my father. After a silence of almost 25 years. This after the accident with the truck and his long stint in the hospital. Once I marked with thin pencil lines the heights of my two children, Caitlin and Charlotte, in the kitchen doorway to our apartment on Clark Street. Once I turned 55, unsure of the consequences. Once I reversed out of a space in a vast lot in front of a Walmart near Vaudreuil, content with my purchase of a few cheap, unnecessary things.
Once I stirred my morning oatmeal with great anticipation. So there you go. So you want to hear? I can. So considerations is as you saw, it's composed of 1,000 sentences. Each sentence has only one verb. No verb is repeated. Each sentence begins once I plus a past form of the verb and plus a personal memory. So that particular version was an hour, about 45, 50-minute performance version that we did a couple of years ago. And then in November, the whole book in the form of a comic book will come out. No images, just it's the format of a Golden Age comic book. Will come out, and there'll be a 4.5-hour reading of the entire 1,000 sentences. So that project was for me both a portrait of my personal memoryscape, but also a portrait of the language in the such that you know it comprises as I said the 1,000 most commonly used verbs in the English language. So that too was important for me to give to situate it within contemporary speech.
I could definitely feel the memoryscape. It was, you know, like it was definitely conjured for me. It was, you know, like triggering my own memoryscape. I guess I'm also, okay, just to like go back to this like theme of collaborations that I'm just going to keep, you know, bringing up tonight. Do you want to tell us a little bit about Alexander McSween? Like, who is he? How did you find him? How did you choose to work with him? Or maybe to talk about the Italian illustrator who did the comic book, which I now wish I had an image that I could show all of you. But I suppose you will just have to go look for the book yourself.
Yeah. It's been a long struggle getting it out in COVID times, but it should come out in mid-November, and then we'll be presenting. Alex and I will be doing this 4.5-hour reading on November 29th. But that's kind of another project. I met Alex many years ago here in Montreal. Alex was is now as a works with Marie Brassard, Robert Lepage, some of the he's become one of the most active, important composers for theater and dance in Quebec. But you know, we met many years ago and have been working together actually since 6 Silk Verses, when he was one of the composers who took one of my works and created his own electroacoustic work.
Thank you. The other thing I wanted to ask you is, you know, when you sent me the links to these works, you also sent me links to things that had inspired you in the creation of the works, or that were important references in relation to the works. And you sent me a link to Sami Frey performing Je me souviens de Georges Perec. But when I tried to click on the link, I couldn't get the sound from the video, so all I saw was a guy biking in a suit. And I just wondered if you, for the sake of everybody on the call, you could, you know, maybe explain to me what I was supposed to be looking for or listening to in that link.
Well, Georges Perec, one of the great writers, writing in French. He died in the mid-1970s, a cancer. But during a relatively brief career of 15 years, he revolutionized French literature, starting with a series of novels which culminated in his masterwork, La Vie Mode d'Emploi. And one of the things that Perec was interested in, he was a polymath, a scientist, an artist, a designer of word puzzles. But he became a member of a group called the OULIPO, the Ouvroir de Littérature Potentielle, the working space for possible literatures, a group that was formed by a number of French mathematicians, scientists, writers. And they introduced the idea of creating literary work guided by a number of constraints. And so, hence, and the Considerations Project was, of course, influenced, inspired by, stolen from the work of Perec and his work Je me souviens, which in it of itself was stolen from, inspired by the poet, American poet Joe Brainerd, who wrote a series of very interesting books called I Remember, also in the late 1960s. So one of the things I liked about Perec and his was his literary, his working method was that he would spend a couple of hours each day lying on the couch and remembering items from his childhood, from his late childhood, early adolescence, early adulthood, and he would give perhaps 10 to 15 minutes per memory, and so he over a period of I guess several months composed this work. And one of the things I was particularly taken by it was I said, well, this is something anybody could do. This is something that I could do. It involved once the rules had been put in place, it was possible to create a work. Anyone could create this work, and I think that's at least that was my conception for Considerations. It was that using a series of constraints and rules, you could create a process where certainly any one of us could create a document, which I think would be powerful and as engaging as the one I did. Perec was perhaps more focused on creating a change within Quebec, within French literature and French France literature at the time, and so. And anyway, if you get a chance and you speak French, the presentation of Sami Frey of Je me souviens is quite an extraordinary piece. It begins with Sami Frey on a bicycle on a dark stage. It's an old bicycle, and it has it's one that whose front headlight is powered by the turning of the pedals, and so as he delivers this. This monologue of about an hour. Sometimes he's fast, sometimes he's slow. The light changes his voice, and within it all, you have this memoryscape that Perec evokes through the works. And one interesting point is that Perec noted that often his memories were false. What he believed to be, a memory from his childhood was simply a fabulation, something cobbled together in his that had no bearing to actuality. So that's what you would have missed. I know you should, if you get a chance to, it used to be up on YouTube, but is no longer. You can see an excerpt of it, but the whole piece, I think you now have to order the Perec archives.
Okay, so the irony is that my connection is super unstable and I'm going in and out of this conversation. I once again missed.
Missed all the audio?
Yeah, I totally missed all the audio. But maybe this is a good point.
I'll send you the recording, yeah.
Yeah. So this is maybe a good point in time to let everybody on the call know that this is being recorded. I'm not sure if we stated that at the beginning or if it was communicated in the invitation, but just so you're aware, it's being recorded, and it's okay if you don't want to turn on your video, or use your voice, but you also it's also a good thing because the recording will be available later in some format that I'm sure will be edited to make me look better. So so that's awesome, and I think the next thing we wanted to talk about was the Annunciation.
Alexis, off.
This isn't her dad, though.
Oh.
Alexa, off. There's a girl with them. Alexa.
All right. So we have new entrants to the room, and they do not have their microphone on mute. Okay, it's on mute now. So okay. So the next thing we want to talk about was the Annunciations project. And Fortner, do you want to give us a little just a description about it, and then we can play a clip from it?
Well, yeah, this is the Annunciation project was another complex project that I read through the UN Intergovernmental Panel Report on Climate Change, the fourth, and it struck me that it's such an extraordinary document, in that here were the hundreds, thousands of the scientists, researchers, government officials who were working together to create a document which would allow us to understand the process of climate change, something unknown at that time of the fourth report. And it struck me that, well, this was an extraordinary human document. And I decided that, well, wouldn't it be interesting to create a poetic relecture of this document? And then I did the same thing with two other documents that I also felt were kind of a summum of contemporary intellectual activity. One was the Columbia Crew Survival Investigation Report, which was published by the National Aeronautics and Space Administration. That, of course, was the report which detailed how the Space Shuttle Columbia catastrophe occurred. And again, it was the work of hundreds and hundreds of engineers who had access to unlimited resources in their attempt to find out what had happened in this event, which had at the time focused the attention of the entire world. And then finally was another document was the Joint Task Force Guantanamo Standard Operating Procedures. The standard operating procedures for the U.S. internment camp in Guantanamo, Cuba. And there too, perhaps in a different realm, you saw a document that was created by the input of thousands of people to attempt to create, a punitive system that would counter essentially the world as it stands. You know, that here was a place where people would be imprisoned who were attempting a violent overthrow of the present order. And so, of course, that was there were a number of underlying falsehoods in that presentation, but nonetheless, here too I was concerned about how the document was created over time. And so I wrote the poems and then recorded the poems and then gave them to 9 different electroacoustic composers in Canada, Europe, the United States, and they created new musical works out of the recordings. And so I can play a selection of one of those recordings by electroacoustic composer, an extraordinary electroacoustic composer by the name of Christian Calon. Maybe I'll try to do that now, since Felicity is probably not able to speak. Oh wait, let me. It'll take a second as I go through the sharing motions here. Here we go.
We emerged from a fiery wound, bloody and wailing, and to move for a time between vacuum and the light, between laughter and the dust, between ashes and the wind. As quickened presences set against the nothing, before returning to our shallow darkness, carved into an implacable silence. Herald of thunder, herald of smoke and jagged tooling, herald of debris and earthly din, herald of wailing absence, as I speak of 7 stars burning, 7 stars failing, 7 tarnished stars pinned upon the torn firmament. 7. Today I sing of 7 who drifted belly into fire, who tumbled into a thickened present. 7 bearing witness, torsos marked as those who would hasten to the stars, to the stars. 13 hours, 52 minutes, 5 seconds, Greenwich Mean Time. The 7 slip through entholic winds, shearing apart nothingness, proclaiming, we are, enthroned like gods upon the flaming chariot of the sun. Yet men, their tiny ember illuminates only emptiness, as dawn debrides the night from the rising blue horizon in the 8 minutes that remain. Q-bar 34, your moment off nominal. The doom moment rises this doomsday above the awakening Thenopolis, bright in the southern sky as fire, holy fire, enters unfettered, seeping into a darkened plenum. The burning bright arc eats and eats, corrupts and consumes. Commander, seat 1, holds the synchronous rotating spheres that unleash an ever-widening gyre, activating switches, validating data, stream.
Mhm.
So
Bon,
that's
ça doit être fini.
the first 3 minutes of Annunciations,
Je
and
vais
it
essayer
goes
quelque
on.
chose, ok?
Right.
Non, reste
Oh, wait.
là. Oui, c'est parce que je vais l'écouter. Moi.
And I guess, Felicity, are you still there?
I am. I came back.
Oh,
I'm
good.
kind of like floating in and out of this
Yeah.
this space. Do you want to talk about the Daking project, or do you want to stay on Annunciations for a little while?
We could talk about, well, Annunciations, yeah, but yeah, well, let's talk about the Day King. Yeah, the Day King was another recent project, yeah. So I met a young composer here in Montreal, Pierre-Luc Sénécal, who heard that piece of Annunciations and wanted to do a compilation, collaboration, excuse me. And we had a talk, and he mentioned that he was a great lover of, aficionado of heavy metal music. And so I immediately said, well, if we do anything, it has to be heavy metal. And so I wrote him a piece. It was based on the first speech scene in Aeschylus's play Agamemnon, the first play, I guess, in the great fall of the house of Atreus, and he was able to find some money and put together the Growler chorus. It's a chorus of some 25 heavy metal growlers who perform this piece, and it's very unfortunate. I mean, we were, of course, going to perform it at the Festival International de Victoriaville, the music last spring, but of course it was canceled because of COVID. Maybe we'll be able to do it again in next May. So so I can show you a bit of that piece. And I've queued it up so that we can see about from minute 15. Does that work for you, Felicity?
Minute 15, sure. And okay, so did you know that I like to do some weightlifting to heavy metal music?
I had not known that before we talked about it, but yeah.
Do you want me to try to do some weightlifting while you play this clip?
Absolutely, yeah.
Okay, so I'm just gonna like turn this around to a different part of the room. And you can play the clip. And when he plays the clip, I should just have my little box on the side. And if you want to watch me weightlift, I'm gonna weightlift 3 different moves from kettlebell sport.
Okay.
In honor of Fortner's endurance poetry.
Okay, here we go. So here we are, the Growler Choir doing a Day King presented by, conducted by Pierre-Luc Sénécal. Okay, ooh, sorry, so I go through the motions here of the sharing screen.
Good, I'm still putting on my belt.
Okay, there we go. There's Felicity. Here we go. You ready? You've got almost 5 minutes.
steadfast, waiting for this moment. One single solid link in a chain that bound a distant troubled past. A nightmare filled with uncountable, unspeakable crimes. To now. This unsuspecting, unaware instant, filled with youthful laughter, is pulled by a heavy anchor back toward retribution. Quick, terrible. There is but one choice, to protect and save, or fling these lives into an abyss. I'm master of this mountain empire. This is my time. Let it be my glory. Without warning, my walls shall tumble. Mother Earth's dark stones. Rise and destroy. Water turns sour. Winter fields perish in fire. Dust and stone. Dead and still, their words formed of earth to burrow deep, till they are lost, effaced, and forgotten. Now whose life is small, whose life is useless, theirs dangles off a single thread, broken when I turn my gaze, when I close my eyes, in their high towers, with their sweets and bread, they are doomed.
Things you should never mix with water. Mascara, home electronics, sodium metal.
Thanks, partner.
Yeah, I'm coming back. I'm coming back there. Okay, there. Well, thank you very much.
I'm just gonna catch my breath. So, are the growlers like serious? Is it like serious stuff?
Oh, yes, yeah.
Or yeah, it's not, there's no irony there.
No. Though the growlers are they, you know, it's very young. It's very they're very engaged in the heavy metal scene. They'd love to take this further. I'm very happy that I was able to do this preliminary piece, but they're now, you know, working on other works that they'll be presenting in concert, you know, if there are concerts in the future.
Okay, so I think I've like, my heart rate has gone down enough for me to ask you some questions.
How heavy is that kettlebell?
It is 12 kilograms. So I'm currently working on one arm lifts because I'm coming back from an injury, and it's hard to train at home in the pandemic, but usually I lift double 12 kilogram. And the idea is to do like one single version of a lift. So you saw 3 different kinds, but the idea is to pick one of those and do it for as many times as possible within a 10-minute period.
Oh yeah, how many times did you do it then?
I wasn't counting.
Oh, okay.
My coach always gets mad if you don't count your reps, and I was not counting my reps, and now it's public. Awesome. Okay, so I think we also wanted to talk about the Points of Departure project.
Oh yes.
And yeah, and so like there's many things about the Points of Departure project, but I wanted to kind of lead with a question about how you think the space that you create with your performance of poetry, and how like that space of like live performance or recorded repeated performance that gets repeated through recording, how that relates to the publication, like either the print form or the material object that you often also produce as like another iteration of the work. And so you've created like deluxe box sets, and I think for Points of Departure, the physical object space is like a bronzed version of it.
Yeah, I can.
Ooh, it's so shiny.
This one is. Yeah.
It's very thick.
So the Points of Departure project, I had this idea. I was going to write a poem a day for over a period of a year. I started off, wrote something for 6 months, didn't write anything for about 4 months, and then wrote something about 4 months, didn't write anything for 4 months, then finished off writing for 4 months, and then I wanted to present the whole project with its failure included, and I was at the time entranced by the idea of creating a book that had to be destroyed in order to be read, and we looked at a number of different ways of doing that, and finally I had the happy idea of the connection with the bronze baby shoe. So essentially this book is bronze, just as one would a baby shoe. Little did I know at the time that this was an extraordinarily complex and difficult task, that getting the bronze to adhere to paper was not simple. And so I'd found one guy in Kingston, Ontario, and his master work was a cigarette bronzed with the ash still intact in the ashtray. And I thought,
wow.
well, this guy is going to do it for me.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so I finished my project, and so the idea was to create a book, create 50 copies of the book, do 50 readings of the piece, and each time I would read the entire work, I would send it off to the bronzer, and it would be bronzed, and at the end of 50 readings, all the books would be bronzed, and that would be that. So unfortunately, my bronzer in Kingston, when I phoned him, had given up the business, sold the equipment, and moved to BC. And his words were, you're going to have trouble finding somebody. He did turn me on to somebody who, another bronzer in Kingston, who was, or in Southern Ontario, who was interested in the project. I sent him the book, didn't hear from him, called him back, and his wife told me that after receiving the book, he had passed away of a massive heart attack. I then looked for people in California, France, South Africa, and finally found somebody, a person who had worked with Ozzy, at Aussie's Magic Metals, and Devar Bronzing in Kingston, Ontario, and he's done the works. So that for me, the space of this work is well, one performs in over the 12 hours and 10 minutes, the entire work, which includes almost 5 hours of silence in the middle where I was unable to write one of these daily poems, and then coming back to bronze it, and then of course the project will end when all the poems have been encased in bronze, and that was something which the idea just appealed to me on a number of different levels.
So will there be 5 hours of silence in the performance?
Oh, there always is. Yeah. So
yeah.
It begins. So I read a date. I read the poem, and then 2 minutes later I read it. Present another date. Read the poem, and then for almost 4.5 hours in the middle of the 12-hour 10-minute project, I get up, I give the date, and then I'm silent for 2 minutes, and then give another date. And I've done it 10, 12 times now, so it's not as awful as it might sound.
So we're coming up to 9, but I think we should just go over, and because it's Saturday night, and but why don't you play us the clip from the piece?
Okay, it's a little clip.
Is it the 5 hours of silence part?
No. Yes, I wish, but. No, it's a little clip that was done by the Casino Luxembourg in Luxembourg, where I presented the piece almost 2 years ago now, and so they did a little video which kind of gives an overview of what the piece is about, and includes a reading of one of the poems. And so here I'll again go through the motions on sharing screen.
So to my mind, we'll watch the clip, and then if we're still around for questions, feel free to ask questions.
Okay, perfect. Here we go.
It's a 12-hour, 10-minute performance where I stand and read the contents of a book. The book is 365 pages long, containing 280-some poems. I read a poem once every 2 minutes. And for the days in which I did not write a poem, I remained silent, just announcing the date. The project began with the notion of creating a text over a period of 1 year and documenting a year. They talk about my travels during that year, the people I met, my emotional life at the time, and they're constructed in a more or less traditional modernist poetic form. And when I read the copies in performance, I take those copies and send them off to be bronzed. The content of the books is only presented in the context of these 12-hour readings. And so if people wish to hear them, hear the work in its entirety, they would have to sit through these 12 hours and 10 minutes of me droning on about my poems. May 7th. Curious George, the rocket monkey, wins by overlapping genetic mapping and Prosecco. while the man in the yellow hat pontificates procurement schemes and mortification on the day before Mother's Day. We great apes gather to toast various claims and propositions, celebrations which end in tears, as approximations of truth swirl and 4 bottles of Australian red roll empty on the floor, colliding with familial debris that lies scattered like dragon's teeth, awaiting ancestral rains of fire.
Who decided to film you in this like white void with an echo?
Yeah, well, that was the people at the Casino Luxembourg. Yeah.
So thank you, Fortner.
Well,
What I really liked about that video is that we get to see like your whole body as if you're like a full human and not just a little like Zoom head.
yeah.
So my chat's gone like blank
I'm a Belgian
multiple times.
designer, and I'm interested.
Oh. Your
In the
poems
world
are like trying to escape from your computer.
Yes, that's me. Yeah.
Does anybody want to ask any questions to Fortner? Because I've asked questions, but other people can ask questions too.
I had one question.
Go ahead, Ian.
Fortner, what made you decide to come to Montreal in the first place?
That's a great question.
Oh, really? Oh, I was on my way to back to France, and I arrived in 1976, a few days before Saint Jean Baptiste, and I had hitchhiked across the country, up from California to Vancouver, and then across. I'd learned down at the one of the pubs down in Old Montreal that there was to be a huge celebration on June 26th, Saint Jean Baptiste Day, and I was leaving actually the next day. So I went up to the mountain. The celebration was held on the mountain that year, and it was indeed incredible with several 100,000 people and great bonfires and musical events and so I met people. I drank. I woke up on a tombstone in Mount Royal Cemetery, or 5 a.m. the next morning, quite hungover. And I decided at that moment that Montreal was the town for me. So I stayed. I mean, this was slightly. Well, I was influenced by the fact that I had only $5 and a false airline ticket to Schiphol. So anyway, I stayed in Montreal. I went down to Vermont, earned $100 on a farm, and then crossed the border again, and then made a life in Montreal. And yeah, which was a great decision. Yeah, an extraordinarily providential occurrence in my life. Yeah. Oh, but maybe we've lost Felicity.
No, I'm still here. I was just, reveling in the description of, Jean Baptiste. It's funny because I think my dad has a similar story. Like, I think my dad ended up in Montreal for a similar reason.
A lot of people did.
Possibly the same party. Yeah.
The same tombstone, maybe. The same.
It sounds shockingly similar.
So
what do you think?
So I guess we should thank everyone. Thanks for attending.
Yeah.
Check out if you want to learn more, check out the website, www.fortneranderson.com. There's always something there. Thank you, Ian. Thank you, Felicity.
Thank you, Spoken Web.
Thank you, Spoken Web. And good to see you, Randy.
Well, you've got that very queenly wave down to a perfect.
Excellent.
Hope to see you soon. Yeah. Okay.
So am I shutting this down or what?
Yeah, shut it down, and there'll be a recording of the whole thing, I guess, on the site in a day or two.
Yeah, I think you have to make me a host again to allow.
Pardon?
Me to shut down.
Okay, bye.
On my head and make me a host.
Or we can just press leave.
Oh, yeah.
Fortner, I'll message you. Bye.
Okay, bye. Bye, Ian. Bye, Geneviève. See you tomorrow. Bye.
Bye tout le monde.
Bye.